Now, ambitions, presupposably, or an ideal thing. They are good to go as far as one can imagine. They are almost great. They can be. If one could be persistent long enough, if one could resist all those outward resistances, if I can say that, then one can be more defiant out of to seek that kind of opportunity to prove himself or herself that, oh, this is it. This is what I have got to be. This is what I have brought upon myself. So I decide this time, and I'm looking for something this time. To be that whom I have always hoped to find about me, especially. Okay, ambitions. Very good. Pretty much the great. But then comes after those circumstances in a different context, different people, different environment, different workload. Those also comes into consideration. All of that, different factors oftentimes have affected those the times, especially to derail of the ways that one couldn't be able to handle them. One hasn't handled them, and those and the people who have failed them are self-evident to such a possibility that yes, circumstances oftentimes derive people out of differences, because one decides to make no matter what, no matter whom they ought to be, they had to make a choice out of such the situation to which they have let themselves into. Admittedly, I was told this, but then I was convinced of the different thing, which is in complete contradiction to what I have heard beforehand. So what makes more clear for me? Is it self-evident that the times are not your ally, or the choices you make, regardless of whatever there is, regardless of whatever there has to be? But oftentimes, the choices you're left with, those decisions that you're left with, are very narrow compared to what you have been told. And then you start to think, during that moment of prime heat, during that moment you start to think about the ways that they have told you that one can make if one can be persistent enough, if one can be more resilient to any kind of problems. Oh, it is quite easy to say, isn't it, that one can overcome any kind of problem if one decides to plow through it. Yes, exactly. That is the word they have told me. If you can plow through it, if you can power through such different supposed obstacles, then persistence is going to triumph at that very end. Okay. Compared to those ideas, those ideals, compare them to what I have gotten myself this time. What has been brought upon to me this time. All those situations and those factors which do derive that kind of scenario. And also, one has to make sure that supposed repercussions or consequences which are going to be followed thereafter aren't going to affect much into one's life. Okay, there was also we were told that ideals is what we were to strive if we were to triumph. It feels good to think about such that, oh, I can make it. If I could just make a little more effort, I could make it. I can make it. In fact, I will make it. Okay, that comes into play. Influence is a strong key. Understandably. Though, there are reasons that one has to go through in order to act upon oneself. And those scenarios oftentimes brings over different outcomes that one hasn't hoped to find themselves in. And the times, through the means of which they bring upon, one decides to make. One decides to do what? Okay, I'm not quite sure. It is of finding a middle ground in between the ideals and what I come across, what I am going to come across. It is to find the one settled out convenience in between those two. But convenience isn't what I'm looking for. If I'm to strive, if I'm headed to strive, then I have to be more than just be convenient, to be more settled. I ought to be persistent along the path that I'm driven. But the ways and the times and the failures that one has brought upon, that one can also be looked upon as a kind of, not a worry. No. Worrying is, I suppose, is normal. Worrying of being a failure is a normal thing. I believe that. It is about the proven ideals, the proven examples that the times have derailed men and women of the path, of the ways upon. Okay. I believe I've lost me. To lose oneself in the middle of something is not a good idea, is it? No, it isn't. But what I have gotten to be this time is to keep pushing. How about that? How about keep pushing? A little more inch by inch. If one can do it, then sure, why not? But at the very end, What is an ambition? One decides to ask. Despite the times that have tried to remove him out of the equation, out of one's equation, out of the way that he wanted to be in. Which is a question I'm not supposed to ask. Because I don't have a proper answer to it. I couldn't be able to tell you, in any honesty, if it is going to work out until one can try it. To put an effort into it. To place something besides believing in nothing. Besides admiring in nothing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't just sit here and wallow in my own nothingness. That is not the way to go. That is never the way to go. And I do believe that. I do believe that. Understandably.